The parallels between Crash and Spyro go much farther than the original trilogy. After both franchises' massive success on the PlayStation 1, new developers came through and ruined all of our hopes and dreams. It was like at the same time too, it was pretty impressive. But then, something new was created to spice things up, and after fans reacted with, alright, not bad, bam! What happened? What did you do to our poor boys? Well, since we've already gone over the weird life and times of Crash Bandicoot post PS1, I guess now it's time to take a look at Spyro and give him the same treatment.
Did someone say Crash?
Jordan Fringe from the YouTube channel Jordan Fringe, what a coincidence! What do you want?
Well, see as how I just got done talking about Crash Bandicoot on my show Nerdstalgic on my channel, I figured I'd stick around and talk about it with you since you're clearly talking about it.
You were not given permission to do so, but okay, we are not talking about Crash today, we already did that. We're talking about Spyro, actually, and given the circumstances, I think you still fit in. Don't you have a couple of Spyro tattoos?
You know it. Hey, what Spyro games are we talking about today? Is this a Reignited Trilogy video?
Close, very close, but no, actually we're going to take a look at the Legend of Spyro Trilogy instead. People were asking me to cover this for a while, and it always seemed interesting, like, it's one of the more infamous things about this franchise. Jordan? That's not a good sign, is it? The Legend of Spyro, also known as what if we gave Spyro a giant forehead? So I've said this before, but I was a fan of A Hero's Tale. It's not an amazing game, but it's not Enter the Dragonfly bad either. The reviews at the time, however, were a bit middle of the road, so I guess it was time for a full-on series reboot. Probably explains the whole new beginning thing. The goal here was to completely rework the origin story of our little purple dragon here, and they certainly did that, I could say that much. This of course led to a trilogy of games, this time with a fully interconnected plot. Now, like I said, this is like my first time really diving into these games. All I really know about them is that the fans of the franchise, and more so the originals, tend to, choose to forget these games existed. And it's very easy to go into this video expecting all three games to be crap, and then I just rant for 20 minutes, bada bing bada boom, we're done. But I'm gonna go into this with as open of a mind as I possibly could. I also went for the whole each game on a different console thing. I like to live dangerously. Oh wow, okay. You know what, not a bad first impression. Chrome Studios, the developers of the Tasmanian Tiger. Okay, I like those games quite a bit. I am now very interested to see what I've missed out on all this time.
In the year of the dragon.
Ha! Prophecy foretells that every 10 generations, a purple dragon will be born. A dragon that will become very powerful. That dragon is now here in an egg in a special temple. However, that resting spot goes under attack, and in order to protect the egg, the elder dragon Ignitus floats it down a river. It eventually reaches a swamp and is then discovered by a family of dragonflies, and Spyro is then raised under them, alongside Sparks.
Seeing and catching are two different things, a big boy.
Oh god, no, he talks. I mean, he did talk in A Hero's Tale too, but oof. There's not good voice acting going on here. Why do they think David Spade was a good idea? Like, who was watching Joe Dirt and was like, oh yeah, he can be a dragonfly? Anyway, after getting into a battle to protect Sparks from enemies, Spyro discovers that he can actually breathe fire, and he is in fact not a dragonfly, but just a dragon. You know, I would have thought that at this point in his life, he would have questioned the whole size difference, body difference, the ability to walk, a lot of things by now, but okay, sure. Eventually, the duo run into Ignitus, who informs our hero that their lands have been overrun by the Dark Armies. It's a bunch of apes. Okay, yeah, sure, why not? I've given up the fact that this has nothing to do with the original games. It is then up to Spyro to travel to different locations to save the other Elder Dragons and stop the evil head honcho, Cinder, before it's too late. And, that's it for the story. It's very simplistic. There are a bunch of interactions that happen along the way with a handful of brand new characters, for sure, But for a game opting to take an established, bright and colorful world and make a storyline that's more dark and serious, to have really bare bones story progression, kinda surprised. I just feel like the idea of maturing a cute and cartoony character never makes sense. These are not games that need dark and gritty reboots. Need I remind you of Sonic 06? That's the obvious one. Don't even get me started on what they did to poor Bomberman. So, you know how the previous games were all about free exploration and platforming to collect a bunch of shiny gems? Yeah, that has been completely thrown out the window. What we now have is a beat-em-up that is so incredibly repetitive that 20 minutes into the game, you've basically experienced the entire thing. Oh man, look at those sick combos. You do get different breath abilities throughout the story, each one being slightly different than the other. That is one of the better ideas that Enter the Dragonfly introduced into the franchise, but it really doesn't matter all that much since now you'll be prioritizing close combat instead. The different breath abilities that sort of help Spyro be unique as a character are now more so just for crowd control. And every time you unlock a new one, they force you into such a long and drawn out tutorial. That's one thing this game has going for it. My god, it drags on. Essentially, what we're presented with here is a non-stop string of linear rooms that sometimes just stops your progression by tossing a ton of enemies at you. They often try to block your path with optional enemies too. I skipped as many of these things as I could. Really now, why would I waste the time? I ain't getting any younger here. You do get these special gems that you can power up your abilities with, but even with skipping basically every optional battle, I still did pretty okay. There is barely any platforming here, and what is here is very simplistic. There's only a puzzle here or there very sporadically to complete, and I would hardly call them a puzzle anyway. And any true sense of challenge is non-existent, because if you die, oh, you can just come right back into the battle where you left off, no worries, bro. There's like this flying section that shows up before the second chapter. Look at this. Are you not excited? I could probably just pick a corner and stay there and I would make it to the end. But you know what, I will give the game some credit. The couple times that it chooses to not be stupid dark, it is kinda pleasant to look at, so that's nice. But really now, The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning is a premium example of a game that is purely about padding to fill out the gameplay length. The combat is here as a force to stop you on your quest, but the combat is not fun. Some new enemies do have these unique strategies that you gotta think about, but it's really just a matter of when to button mash them until they die. Yeah, skipping them is a lot faster, but mindlessly walking forward isn't fun either. I was at least hoping that the bosses would be interesting. They're the big ones, man. These are the things we're fighting towards. But nope, they all sucked too. And even though I said this before, I cannot reiterate this stronger. This game moves so damn slow at times, I am honestly flabbergasted. Look at this. This is by far the slowest elevator I've seen in my damn life. It is insane to me to think that they thought this was the best way to move Spyro forward. The thing is though, the developers at Chrome Studios did the Tasmanian Tiger Trilogy, which is another series of games that had platforming elements and beat-em-up elements. And those games aren't bad. How did they screw this up? The story is conceptually kind of interesting, but the gameplay is so mediocre that it is not worth playing through it to experience it, coming from someone who did play through it. Eventually, Spyro runs into Cinder, and after a couple of battles, one of which takes place in space, I guess, also jellyfish, Cinder, who was actually transformed under the Dark Master's power, returns to her normal dragon self. Spyro then saves her before the realm collapses on top of them. Sparks tries to be funny, which honestly is a common theme throughout the entire game. Credits. Man, this game blew. I know I skimmed through this game like it was nothing. That's the thing though, this game is nothing. The only part of the entire adventure that I actually liked was like, okay, early on you see like these gems, right? My instinct at first was to immediately hit it and get what was inside it. But then Sparks asks me why I did it, and then Spyro just says, "Oh, I just had to, and a power of 1,000 suns filled his body." Like, what? That's pretty good. Okay, wait, no, I take that back. Actually, the best part of the game were these randomly generated enemy names. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but oh man, it is funny. Goober Doomgrin, Riftabule Streak Wanderer, Brown Shoot Woodbeard, Fisty Warlord, Fisty, okay, oh, never mind, don't like that one bit. It seems like a neat idea on paper. You know, let's give Spyro a female counterpart. Sure. That's a bad video game. And you may be asking, well, did people really ask for a sequel? No, I'm pretty sure no one asked for a sequel, but really, who cares what we want, because a year later, we got The Legend of Spyro the Eternal Night. More like I wish for eternal rest. I did choose the Wii version this time around, because I figured, hey, if I'm going down swinging. That's the best you're gonna get out of me this episode. Let's get the game started. Oh man, the icon. It's so stretched. I'm already dreading this. The game begins with a retelling of the last game's ending.
What? Save the beast that's been trying to kill us?
Alrighty then, 2 games in and they couldn't manage to keep the same voice actor for one of the main characters. That's a good sign. Now it's Billy West, sounding exactly like Fry from Futurama. Therefore, it's impossible to imagine anything else. Rad. So, Cinder, feeling grief for causing so much trouble last time, runs away, believing she doesn't belong at the Dragon Temple. Spyro goes after her. Yeah, that's the story. You go after Cinder again. And naturally, he of course no longer has the powers that he gained last time. He apparently lost them all during that last battle. Sure, you gotta find out some way to give us another long and drawn out tutorial at the start of the game. But then the gameplay starts up and I gotta tell ya, it's the same exact thing as the first one. I am actually very impressed with how similar it is. It's just another overly repetitive beat 'em up. The level design sometimes now provides some more chances for platforming. That's kinda cool, I can appreciate that. You can now slow down time? For some reason, they explain it in the story, but why? Why does Spyro slow down time? And thankfully, despite picking up the Wii version, motion controls are totally optional. That was like my one saving grace. Now in terms of combat, the first game wasn't super easy, but it was incredibly forgiving. Now, in Eternal Night, the battles are more difficult. I would go as far as to say sometimes they're downright challenging, and they do penalize you for dying. Nothing quite says punishment like having to re-watch pre-battle cutscenes. Making more challenging combat does sound like a good thing on paper, but since the game is still so button mashy, the difficulty here comes in the enemies getting out of their stun a whole lot faster, so they have more chances to attack you mid-combo. They do change up how the elemental breaths now play out, so that's kind of refreshing. Some of the boss battles even play out sorta differently as well. You know what? The game does actually have some ambition shining through. Oh wait, the boss just healed itself. Never mind, this went back to being bad. My favorite part of what I played in this one, they acknowledged the whole sparks eating butterflies thing. That was pretty funny. Never mind. So guys, I actually have a confession to make. I physically could not bring myself to complete this game. The first game was already such a struggle to play through, and now the second one is just more of the same, but with incredibly cheap difficulty. I got to this fight with these 2 scorpion things, and this was the final straw. I was stuck on these things for like 20 minutes. They're nearly impossible to hit. If they hit you, you'll be stun locked and then just hit again. Sometimes these cannonballs get shot at you and you take even more damage if you weren't already having a bad time. I was already not liking the game, but this was my breaking point. I kinda just feel like nothing when playing this game. Arguably, that's how I feel at all times, but playing this game increased that feeling drastically. Maybe the story picks up if I were to play it more, I've heard that a bunch, but I'm not gonna force myself to play a bad game just to experience a couple cutscenes. At that point, I may as well just read the Wikipedia article. Okay, we're almost done here. 2 games down, 1 to go. This one made the jump to HD consoles. We got The Legend of Spyro, Dawn of the Dragon. So this third game here is actually not developed by Chrome, the developers behind the last 2 games. Well, damn. Okay, I may actually have something to look forward to now. So the plot with this one starts out with Spyro and Cinder encased in crystal in an effort to protect them from whatever happened at the end of Eternal Night? I told you I didn't beat the game. I'm just gathering what information I could from this opening cutscene. 3 years have passed, and the two have been freed from their prison by these weird-looking things. They've matured up, too. Man, Spyro looks even weirder. Oh, cool, the first thing we do in this game is combat. My expectations are being met already. What the? Don't let them escape. My guy, you freed them. Eventually, though, our duo, of course, escape. And hey, it's Sparks with, guess what? A new voice actor.
You know, little stiff. Voice keeps changing.
Haha. Rounding off the list of Sparks voice actors is Wayne Brady. They really didn't even try to get voice actors that sounded similar. And the one responsible for helping them escape? It's Hunter. Oh, okay. I thought Spyro's redesign wasn't great. But what the hell happened to Hunter? He just looks like a generic cheetah now. That's expressed even more so when we enter his village to an entire tribe of them.
Come closer so I can see you in the light.
Bro, it's the middle of the day. What are you talking about? Take off your stupid hood if you can't see me. Okay, you know what? I know I'm sounding very salty right about now, but I will give the game credit. The tutorial actually has you do things rather than just locking you into a tutorial room. Wow, it's like really obvious that new developers were used this time around. Things feel so shockingly different. For one, you can swap control between Spyro and Cinder at any time. The game can in fact be played in co-op. You two are tethered together with like this magic rope thing. Sure, whatever, any excuse to keep the two characters within arm's reach of each other. But they can also fully fly now as opposed to just gliding, so aging them up actually makes sense in terms of gameplay. Now that they've matured, they can fly. The game will often change the camera position, too, keeping things a bit more visually interesting. There is some unnecessary button mashing moments here and there, as well as some QuickTime events. No one likes those. But I'm not gonna lie, I am kind of okay with this so far. And then when you make it out of this tomb, you get introduced to the reinvented world of Avalar. And man, this is very pretty. And all the animations that happen during cutscenes, there is a lot more life put into them. This is genuinely good stuff. What we had for the last two games was a bunch of linear rooms stringed back to back. What we're presented with now is actually an open world where you're totally free to fly around and discover things at your own leisure. And as you're flying, this sweeping, really powerful music plays, and it just feels nice. However, as quick as the game was just getting good, it takes a nosedive just as fast. Man, the frame rate here is terrible. Maybe it's better on Xbox 360 or even the PlayStation 2, but on PS3, this game chugs if you're flying too fast. And the tethering mechanic sounds fine for the sake of co-op, but they didn't factor in that the other character, when played by a computer, will often get stuck, preventing you from progressing and making exploring a lot less enjoyable. Like here, I just want to go up this little bridge and start exploring the grassland. Spyro's preventing me from doing so. So okay, let me swap to him to get him unstuck. And then he says,
Move it, Cinder!
I'm glad dragons are extinct. Sadly, once we move on to the next chapter, things fall right back into the status quo. Mindless button mashing until the game says you can move on. It's such a disgusting tease. Every time you think you're done, nope, here's a few more. Keep pushing the square button, you big dumb. If the game just simply doubled down on the whole open world thing, we may actually have a solid game here, but sadly, that's just not what we got. This one just felt like the worst one to hate. I really wanted to like this one. It was doing so many cool things, and then it just kept fighting me back. Like I said before, I didn't want to go into this expecting to hate all three outright, but it turns out that's just what happened. It's very low-hanging fruit. I went into this trilogy with a fully open mind, and I can finally confirm this trilogy sucks. Two utterly lifeless beat-em-ups that made Spyro dark and gritty for no real reason, and one game with some genuine promise and just a lot holding it back. It's a shame. It really is. The idea of rebooting this series at that time wasn't the worst. If you recall, I liked it when Crash turned into a beat-em-up. the first time. From what I can gather by researching online, the story is what makes these games special in the minds of those who played them when they were younger. I hear people tend to be pretty okay with the atmosphere and the characters that the world provides, but in my opinion, the fact that this was done to the Spyro the Dragon franchise, of all franchises, I can't help but feel like this effort was all pointless. They were really going all out with this idea too. They were even planning a movie at some point that obviously got cancelled. But ultimately, in terms of the gameplay, no, it's not happening. I'm not playing this anymore. It is the job of the game to compel me to play through it. I shouldn't have to feel obligated to do so. And if these games had any semblance of the previous games, the ones that made Spyro a name in the first place, I would have been a lot more interested. Completely reworking what defines a Spyro game. That would have totally been possible to do, but they failed. Cause man, you know me, nothing quite speaks Spyro the Dragon like find a bucket. At least I can finally say that I've experienced what this trilogy is all about, and boy, we're not even close to done with the Spyro franchise. The Legend games were released on portables, and as you are all well aware, Spyro then transformed into Skylanders, so we have plenty of material to work with over the next year or so, however long it takes me, but it's 2018, and Spyro is actually relevant again, and that is worth celebrating. So, got myself a somewhat clean bucket, and I think next time, Reignited Trilogy. See you then.